The mining asteroid Kepler 442b hummed with the constant vibration of extraction machinery, its metallic corridors echoing with the sounds of alien voices and grinding equipment. Deep within the facility's most secure section, past multiple energy barriers and automated defense systems, lay the prize that had made this remote operation profitable for 15 centuries. The dragon was magnificent even in captivity. Valtharion measured nearly 50 meters from snout to tail, his scales shimmering with an inner fire that pulsed like a dying star. Energy dampeners wrapped around his massive form like glowing chains, suppressing the cosmic forces that naturally flowed through his ancient body. The Zephyrian Empire had discovered him drifting in the void between galaxies, wounded and alone, and had immediately recognized the opportunity. Dragons were living fusion reactors, their bodies capable of processing stellar material and converting it into pure energy. A single dragon could power an entire star system for millennia. The Zephyrians had built their galactic empire on the backs of enslaved dragons, using specialized neural inhibitors to break their will and force compliance. Commander Zeltar of the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet stood before the containment field, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. His four eyes studied the readouts with satisfaction. The dragon's energy output had remained stable for the past decade, providing power to 17 mining operations across this sector. Status report. Zeltar clicked in the harmonious language of his people. Energy levels optimal. Commander, responded his aide, a younger Zephyrian whose carapace still bore the bright blues of youth. The neural inhibitors continued to suppress any rebellious thoughts. The beast remains compliant, Zeltar nodded approvingly. Dragons were dangerous when free, capable of destroying entire fleets with their cosmic fire, but properly contained. They were the most efficient energy source in the known galaxy. This particular specimen had been one of their greatest catches, discovered floating near a dead star system, already weakened by some ancient battle. The dragon's great eye opened, revealing an iris like a swirling nebula. For a moment, Zeltar felt an uncomfortable sensation, as if the creature was looking not at him but through him, seeing something the Zephyrian commander couldn't comprehend. The eye closed again, and the moment passed. Sir, the aide's voice carried a note of concern. We're receiving a transmission from the outer perimeter. A small craft is approaching, registry unknown. Zeltar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Pirates! Negative, sir. The vessel appears to be of human origin. This gave the commander pause. Humans were a relatively new species to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last few centuries. They were considered primitive by most standards, lacking the advanced biotechnology of the Zephyrians or the psychic abilities of the Altarians. Most galactic powers viewed them as little more than curious scavengers, picking through the remnants of older civilizations. What would humans want with a mining operation? Zeltar mused aloud. They claim to be responding to a distress signal, sir. Impossible. This facility hasn't sent any distress signals. The commander's eyes narrowed. Bring the ship in under heavy escort. If these humans are pirates, they've made a grave error. 20 minutes later, Zeltar stood in the docking bay as a small, battered human vessel settled onto the landing platform. The ship was clearly old, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and hastily patched in several places. It looked more like a salvage hauler than a military vessel. The airlock hissed open and a single human emerged. Zeltar had seen humans before, but they still struck him as oddly fragile creatures. This one was tall by human standards, with graying hair and weathered skin that spoke of years in space. He wore a simple flight suit that had seen better days and carried no visible weapons. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, the human said in accented galactic standard. Thanks for letting me dock. I picked up what sounded like a distress signal from this location. Zeltar studied the human through his compound eyes. I am Commander Zeltar. There has been no distress signal from this facility. You must be mistaken. The human frowned, pulling out a small device and checking its readings. That's strange. My equipment definitely detected something. A very specific frequency, almost like someone calling for help. Your equipment is faulty. Zeltar clicked dismissively. This is a restricted mining operation. You should not have come here. But even as he spoke, the commander felt a chill of unease. Deep in the facility's core, the dragon's energy readings had begun to fluctuate in ways the instruments couldn't explain. For 1,500 years, Valtharion had been silent, his will broken by neural inhibitors and constant suppression. But something had changed. The human captain was looking around the docking bay with curious eyes, taking in details with the practiced gaze of someone who had seen many different worlds. "This is quite an operation you have here. What kind of mining produces this much energy output?" "That information is classified," Zeltar replied sharply. But the human's question troubled him. How could a primitive species detect their power signatures from outside the asteroid? In the depths of the facility, something ancient stirred. Veltharian's great eye opened again, and this time, there was awareness in its cosmic depths that hadn't been there for centuries. The neural inhibitors continued their work, but beneath their electronic suppression, thoughts began to form. The dragon had felt it the moment the human ship entered the system. Something that shouldn't have been possible. Something that changed everything. After 1,500 years of silence, someone had finally heard his call. Chen was still talking, asking questions about the facility and the mining operations, but Zeltar was no longer listening. Alarms were beginning to sound deep within the asteroid, and the energy readings from the core were spiking in patterns that defied explanation. "Commander," his aide's voice crackled through his communicator, "we're detecting massive fluctuations in the power core. The beast it's doing something we've never seen before." Zeltar's mandibles clicked in alarm. In 15 centuries of captivity, the dragon had never shown this level of activity. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Somehow the arrival of this human was connected to what was happening in the depths of the facility. The human captain seemed to sense the change in atmosphere. Her eyes met Zeltar's compound gaze, and for a moment the commander saw something there that made his carapace crawl with instinctive fear. This was no primitive scavenger. This human knew exactly why she was here. "Perhaps," Chen said quietly, "we should discuss what you're really mining down there." The alarms grew louder as Zeltar led Captain Chen through the facility's corridors, his security detail flanking them with weapons drawn. The human walked with an unsettling calmness, seeming almost amused by the chaos erupting around them. Mining workers scattered as they passed, their various alien forms chittering and hissing in distress. "Your power core seems to be having some difficulties," Chen observed, her voice carrying over the warning klaxons. "A minor fluctuation," Zeltar lied, though his mandibles clicked nervously. The truth was that nothing like this had ever happened before. The dragon's energy output was climbing beyond all safe parameters, and the containment systems were struggling to compensate. They descended deeper into the asteroid through a series of heavily secured lifts and checkpoints. At each level, the security became more intense. Automated turrets tracked their movement, and energy barriers required multiple authorization codes to pass through. Chen noted everything with those sharp eyes, missing no detail. "Quite a lot of security for a simple mining operation," she commented. "This asteroid contains rare elements," Zeltar replied tersely. "Pirates are always a concern." But Chen's smile suggested she wasn't buying the explanation. "In my experience, Commander, this level of security is usually reserved for something far more valuable than ore." The final checkpoint required biometric scans from 3 different officers. As they waited for clearance, a young Zephyrian technician rushed up to Zeltar, his carapace flushed with stress colors. "Commander, the neural inhibitors are failing. We're reading conscious thought patterns from the specimen. After 1,500 years, it's actually thinking again." Zeltar's 4 eyes widened in horror. A thinking dragon was a dangerous dragon. The inhibitors weren't just meant to suppress rebellion. They were designed to keep the creatures in a vegetative state, where they couldn't access their full cosmic powers. "Specimen?" Chen asked quietly, and Zeltar realized the human had overheard everything. The blast doors finally opened, revealing the massive containment chamber beyond. Chen stepped through and stopped dead, her breath catching audibly. Even through the energy barriers and containment fields, Veltharian's presence was overwhelming. The dragon lay coiled in the center of the chamber, his scales pulsing with increasing intensity. "My God," Chen whispered, "it's really you." Zeltar spun toward her, his weapons coming up. "You know what this creature is?" "I know who he is," Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the dragon. "His name is Veltharian. He was one of the cosmic guardians, protectors of free civilizations across the galaxy. My people have legends about dragons like him." "Legends?" Zeltar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "Humans barely knew this galaxy existed when we captured this beast." Chen turned to face him, and there was something ancient in her expression that made the Zephyrian commander step backward involuntarily. "Commander, what do you think happened to the dragons? Where do you think they all went?" Before Zeltar could respond, a sound echoed through the chamber that hadn't been heard in 15 centuries. The dragon spoke, his voice like the rumble of distant stars, penetrating the containment barriers as if they didn't exist. "Sarah Chen of Earth, you heard my call?" The human captain smiled, tears streaming down her face. "I promised I'd come back for you. All of you." Zeltar's mind reeled as the implications hit him. This wasn't a chance encounter. The human had known exactly where to find them, had somehow tracked a signal that their own instruments couldn't detect. But that was impossible unless— "You're not entirely human," he breathed. Chen's smile widened, and for a moment, her eyes flashed with the same cosmic fire that burned in the dragon's gaze. "My grandmother wasn't from Earth, Commander. She was draconic, one of the few who escaped your empire's hunting fleets. She taught me the old songs, the frequencies that dragons use to communicate across vast distances." The chamber's energy readings spiked again as Valtharion raised his great head, neural inhibitors sparking and failing one by one. 1,500 years I have called into the void, hoping some of our blood still lived free. 1,500 years of waiting for someone who remembered the ancient bonds. Zeltar activated his communicator with desperate efficiency. "All units to containment level. Initiate emergency protocols. The dragon is breaking free." But Chen was already moving, pulling a small device from her pocket. It looked innocuous, no larger than a human palm, but when she activated it, the dragon's restraints began to dissolve like morning mist. "That's impossible," Zeltar gasped. "Those bonds are quantum locked. They can't be broken by any known technology." "By any Zephyrian technology," Chen corrected, "but dragons built their own safeguards into everything they touched. They knew that someday their descendants would return to free them." Valtharion was rising now, his massive form uncoiling as the last of the energy dampeners failed. The asteroid shook as his power began to flow unrestricted for the first time in 15 centuries. His scales blazed like miniature stars and his eyes held the fury of 1,000 suns. "You enslaved me," the dragon's voice echoed with cosmic rage. "You chained me like an animal, stole my fire to power your empire of conquest. For 1,500 years I have dreamed of this moment." Zephyrian security forces poured into the chamber, their weapons charging with high-energy discharges, but their shots simply dissipated against the dragon's natural defenses like raindrops against a sun. "Wait," Chen called out, raising her hand. "Valtharion, they're not all guilty. Many of these soldiers weren't even born when you were captured." The dragon's burning gaze fixed on her, and for a moment Zeltar thought they would all be reduced to ash. But slowly, the cosmic fire dimmed to a controllable burn. "You counsel mercy for those who would enslave the free," Valtharion rumbled. "I counsel wisdom," Chen replied. "Revenge feels good, but justice serves the future. Besides, we have bigger problems than one mining facility." Zeltar watched in fascination and terror as the human communicated with the ancient creature, as if they were old friends. The implications were staggering. If humans had draconic blood, if they knew the old frequencies and codes, how many? He found himself asking. How many dragons are still imprisoned across the Empire? Chen turned to him with an expression of grim determination. "According to our records, the Zephyrian Empire has enslaved over 300 dragons across 17 sectors. They power your ships, your cities, your war machines. And you intend to free them all," Zeltar said, understanding dawning like a cold star. "Every single one," Chen confirmed. "The age of slavery is ending, Commander. The dragons are going home." Valtharion spread his wings, and the asteroid shook with the force of contained starfire. "The bonds are broken. The call has been answered. Let the Empire tremble, for the children of stars have returned to claim their own." The dragon's roar echoed through the facility, a sound of freedom that would carry across the void to others of his kind. After 1,500 years of silence, the cosmic guardians were awakening. The galaxy was about to change forever. The mining facility erupted into chaos as Valtharion's roar reverberated through every corridor and chamber. Emergency lights bathed the asteroid in crimson warning as power systems fluctuated wildly. Without the dragon's controlled energy output feeding into their grid, backup generators struggled to maintain life support. Zeltar found himself in the unprecedented position of negotiating with what his empire considered livestock. The human Chen, stood between him and the now free dragon like a diplomatic bridge spanning an impossible gulf. "Your entire civilization is built on slavery," Veltharion declared, his cosmic voice making the metal walls vibrate. "Every ship in your fleet, every city on your worlds, all powered by the suffering of my kind. You speak of negotiations while my brothers and sisters remain in chains. It's not that simple," Zeltar protested, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "The Empire spans thousands of worlds. Billions depend on the energy grid. If you simply destroy everything, billions will die," Chen finished quietly. "That's what he's trying to say, Veltharion. And he's not wrong." The dragon's massive head swiveled toward the human, cosmic fire dimming slightly in his eyes. "You defend them?" "I defend innocence," Chen replied firmly. "The Zephyrian military enslaved you, but Zephyrian children going to school on their homeworld aren't responsible for that decision. We need to be smarter than simple destruction." Through the facility's communication systems, reports were flooding in from across the asteroid. Mining workers from a dozen different species were abandoning their posts, fleeing toward the hangar bays in improvised transports. The Zephyrian security forces were trying to maintain order, but faced with a free dragon, their training proved inadequate. "Commander Zeltar," Chen said, turning her attention to the Zephyrian officer, "you have a choice to make. You can try to fight this, send word to your superiors, bring in the fleet, but we both know how that ends." Zeltar's compound eyes studied the human's face, searching for deception. "You have a plan. I have a proposition," Chen corrected. "Help us locate the other imprisoned dragons, and we'll help you transition your empire to sustainable energy sources. Fight us, and watch your civilization burn as every dragon breaks free at once." The commander's aide, who had been monitoring communications from a portable console, approached with visible distress. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the sector. Dragons in 17 different facilities have begun showing signs of awakening. The neural inhibitors are failing everywhere." Veltharion's laughter was like the birth of stars, beautiful and terrifying. "The call spreads. My voice carries to my kindred across the void. Soon none will remain silent." "How is that possible?" Zeltar demanded. "The dragons are isolated, their communication suppressed." Chen pulled out her device again, its simple appearance belying its incredible function. Quantum entanglement on a cosmic scale. Dragons don't just communicate through space. They communicate through the fabric of reality itself. When Veltharion's bonds were broken, every dragon in the galaxy felt it. The implication struck Zeltar like a physical blow. If dragons across the Empire were simultaneously breaking free from centuries of captivity, the resulting chaos would tear their civilization apart. Ships would lose power mid-flight, cities would go dark, entire star systems would become uninhabitable. "You've doomed us all," he whispered. "Not if you're smart about this," Chen countered. "My ship isn't really a salvage vessel. It's the advanced scout for something much larger. Humanity has spent the last 3 centuries developing alternatives to dragon power. Fusion technology, antimatter containment, stellar engineering. We can help you rebuild." Veltharion watched this exchange with ancient wisdom gleaming in his cosmic eyes. "Why do you offer aid to those who would enslave the free daughter of my people?" "Because that's what makes us better than them," Chen replied. "We break the cycle. We prove that freedom doesn't require revenge, just justice." A new alarm began sounding, different from the facility alerts. This was the deep, resonant tone that meant incoming ships. Zeltar checked his readouts and felt his carapace pale to a sickly gray. "Admiral Kethvar is approaching with the, 3rd battle group. He'll have orders to contain this situation. By any means necessary," Chen nodded grimly. "Including destroying the entire asteroid?" "Including anything that threatens the Empire's stability," Zeltar confirmed. Veltharion raised his great head, cosmic senses reaching out beyond the asteroid's confines. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 dreadnoughts, and a flagship. They come armed with dragon killers. The term sent a chill through the chamber. Dragon killers were specialized weapons designed specifically to penetrate draconic defenses. They had been developed during the Empire's initial conquest of the Dragon Realms, weapons of genocide disguised as military necessity. "How long do we have?" Chen asked. 20 minutes until they achieve firing position," Zeltar calculated. Chen was already moving, heading toward the chamber's communication console. "Then we need to make contact with my people. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity learned from the dragons we saved." Her fingers danced over the controls with surprising familiarity, establishing a quantum-encrypted channel that bypassed all of the facility's security protocols. Within moments, a response came back, transmitted on frequencies that made Valtharian's eyes brighten with recognition. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Liberation Fleet. We're reading massive energy signatures from your position. Are you secure?" "Negative," Chen replied crisply. "We have one free dragon and incoming Zephyrian battle group with hostile intent. Request immediate assistance." There was a pause, then Rodriguez's voice returned with a note of grim satisfaction. "Copy that, Captain. Hold your position. The cavalry is coming." On the facility's external sensors, new contacts began appearing at the edge of the system. Ships emerging from hyperspace with energy signatures unlike anything in the Zephyrian databases. These weren't the crude human vessels the Empire remembered from their first contact centuries ago. "Impossible," Zeltar breathed, studying the readings. "Those power levels. They're using dragon fire." "Not using," Chen corrected with a smile. "Partnering. The dragons we saved taught us their secrets. We learned to work with cosmic fire instead of stealing it." Valtharian spread his wings and the asteroid trembled with barely contained power. "My children return home bearing the fire of freedom. Let the slavers taste the fury of willing flame." The chamber filled with light as the dragon prepared to break through the asteroid's hull and join the battle that was about to reshape the galaxy. But Chen raised her hand, stopping him. "Wait, Valtharian. Let them come to us. Let the Empire see what happens when dragons choose to fight alongside those who respect their freedom." Through the facility's communication channels, Admiral Rodriguez's voice echoed with quiet authority. "Attention, Zephyrian vessels. You are ordered to stand down and withdraw from this system immediately. We have no desire for unnecessary bloodshed, but we will not allow the continued enslavement of free beings." Fleet Admiral Kethavar's response crackled with imperial arrogance. "This is Zephyrian space, humans. Your presence here is an act of war. Surrender the stolen dragon and evacuate immediately or face the consequences." Chen looked at Zeltar with something that might have been pity. "Your admiral just made a very serious mistake. He called Valtharian stolen property." The dragon's roar of fury shook the entire asteroid, and across the system, 1,500 years of enforced servitude came to a violent end. Space erupted in brilliant fire as two fleets faced each other across the void. The Zephyrian Third Battle Group held formation in a classic offensive pattern, their ships bristling with weapons designed to kill dragons. Opposing them, the Human Liberation Fleet, deployed in a configuration that should have been impossible, ships, moving in perfect harmony with massive draconic forms flying freely between them. Admiral Kethavar studied the tactical display from his flagship's bridge, his four eyes struggling to process what they were seeing. "Sensor officer report. Those readings cannot be accurate. Admiral, I'm detecting 23 free dragons accompanying the human vessels. Power signatures are beyond our measurement capability." The flagship shuddered as cosmic forces washed over it. Through the viewports, crew members could see dragons larger than their dreadnoughts gliding through space, as if it were their natural element. Cosmic fire trailing from their forms like stellar wind. "How is this possible?" Kethavar demanded. "Dragons cannot survive in vacuum without life support." His xenobiology specialist, a nervous Altarian with pale blue skin, consulted her instruments with trembling hands. "Admiral, dragons are cosmic beings. They don't require atmospheric breathing like planetary life forms. Our historical records indicate they once traveled freely between stars before the Empire's expansion." On the mining asteroid, Valtharian was straining against Chen's restraining hand. Every instinct demanded that he burst through the facility's hull and join his kindred in the void. But the human's touch carried a calming influence that spoke to the part of him that remembered diplomacy over destruction. "Let me fight alongside my brothers," he rumbled, cosmic energy crackling around his form. "Not yet," Chen replied firmly. "This isn't just about freeing you. It's about changing how the galaxy views dragons forever. We need to show them that you're not weapons to be wielded but allies to be respected." Commander Zeltar was monitoring fleet communications from his position near the chamber's control console. The chatter between Zephyrian ships revealed growing panic as their sensors registered power levels that defied all known physics. "Admiral Rodriguez is hailing us," he reported, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. Chen nodded toward the communication array. "Put her through." The holographic image of a middle-aged human woman appeared in the center of the chamber, her uniform bearing insignia that Zeltar didn't recognize. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was alive with activity. And through the viewport, the unmistakable form of a silver dragon could be seen keeping pace with the vessel. "Captain Chen, good to see you made it to the party," Admiral Rodriguez said with a grim smile. "We've got 23 freed dragons out here, and they're all pretty angry about their treatment. I'm trying to keep them from turning this into a massacre." "Understood, Admiral. Faltharian is secure but eager to join the liberation. What's our status?" "The Zephyrians have us outnumbered in terms of ships, but..." Rodriguez paused as something spectacular occurred outside her viewport. A massive golden dragon had moved directly in front of the enemy flagship, its cosmic fire washing over the ship's shields like a tide of molten starlight. "It seems the dragons have their own tactical plans," Rodriguez continued dryly. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarms were screaming as the ship's defensive systems struggled with energies they weren't designed to handle. The golden dragon wasn't attacking exactly, but its mere presence was overloading their shield generators. "Dragon killer batteries. Target the creature and fire," Admiral Kethvar ordered. The specialized weapons charged and fired, sending lances of energy specifically tuned to disrupt draconic biology. But instead of striking their target, the beams were absorbed into the dragon's cosmic fire and redirected harmlessly into space. "Impossible," Kethvar snarled. "Those weapons have never failed." "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with barely concealed terror, "the dragon is communicating directly with our computer systems. It's speaking to our ship." Through the flagship's communication array, a voice like distant thunder echoed across every deck. "I am Thymatharian the Golden, first guardian of the Stellar Assembly. For 1,200 years I have powered your war machine. No more." The ship's lights flickered as power conduits began shutting down systematically. Not destroyed, but simply disconnected. Thymatharian was undoing 15 centuries of forced integration with surgical precision. Back on the asteroid, Faltharian watched the liberation unfold through the facility's sensors, his cosmic eyes bright with fierce joy. "Thymatharian was always the most methodical of us. He will disable their fleet without killing a single crew member." "The dragons are showing remarkable restraint," Chen observed, studying the tactical display. "They could destroy the entire Zephyrian force." "We learned patience in our captivity," Faltharian replied. "And wisdom. Destroying our oppressors would only create martyrs. Better to render them powerless and force them to negotiate." Commander Zeltar was receiving increasingly desperate communications from his superiors. Ship after ship in the battle group was reporting total power failure as dragons methodically dismantled the energy systems that had once been powered by enslaved members of their species. "This is madness," he muttered. "Our entire fleet neutralized by creatures we thought were animals." "That's your first mistake," Chen said quietly. "Dragons were never animals. They're older than your empire, older than most civilizations in this galaxy. They remember when the cosmos was young and stars were first learning to burn." A new voice joined the communication channel, transmitted from the human fleet with harmonics that made the asteroid's metal structure sing. It was Admiral Rodriguez, but she wasn't alone. Behind her words, other voices joined in, human and draconic, speaking in unison. "Fleet Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Liberation Fleet, speaking for the Free Dragon Alliance. Your weapons are disabled, your ship's dead in space. We offer you two choices: surrender and negotiate for the peaceful liberation of all enslaved dragons, or watch as every dragon in your empire breaks free simultaneously and your civilization collapses into chaos." Through the facility's external cameras, they could see the human ships maintaining perfect formation around their draconic partners. It was a sight that should have been impossible. Organic beings and mechanical constructs working in harmony that spoke of deep mutual respect and understanding. How did humanity accomplish this? Zeltar asked, genuine curiosity overcoming his fear. "We tried for centuries to truly communicate with dragons. The neural inhibitors were necessary because we could never establish genuine cooperation." Chen's smile was sad. "Because you approached them as conquerors seeking to exploit a resource. We approached them as refugees seeking sanctuary. When the first free dragon arrived at Earth wounded and dying, we didn't try to chain her. We tried to heal her." Baltharian's massive head turned toward the human with something like wonder in his cosmic gaze. Seraphina was her name. The last of the Star Singers. We thought she had perished in the fall of the Crystal Nebula. She lived long enough to teach us the old songs, Chen replied, and to make us promise that we would never allow her kind to suffer enslavement again. The communication channel crackled with Admiral Kethvar's voice, strain evident even through the universal translator. What are your terms for negotiation? Admiral Rodriguez's response carried the weight of inevitability. Complete liberation of all enslaved dragons. Technological assistance to transition your empire to sustainable energy sources, and formal recognition of draconic sovereignty and rights. And if we refuse? Valtharion answered that question, his voice carrying across the void to reach every ship in both fleets. Then the age of empires built on slavery ends tonight, and you learn why dragons were once called the guardians of freedom. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. The standoff in space stretched for agonizing minutes as Admiral Kethvar considered his impossible position. His fleet hung powerless in the void, their most advanced weapons useless against beings who understood the fundamental forces of the universe better than any engineer. But the Admiral was a product of the Imperial system, trained from hatching to see dominance as the only viable position. The idea of negotiating with what his people considered property was unthinkable. All ships, he broadcasted on emergency frequencies, activate emergency protocols. If we cannot capture these creatures, we destroy them. I will not be the admiral who lost the Empire's most valuable assets. The desperate transmission reached every vessel in the battle group, including those already disabled by dragon intervention. But it also reached other recipients, the dragons. Themselves heard every word through the quantum entanglement that connected their consciousness across vast distances. Thymatharion's golden form blazed brighter as rage kindled in his cosmic heart. The other dragons throughout the system began responding to his emotional state, their own fires burning hotter in sympathy. Assets. Valtharion repeated the word like poison on his tongue. After everything they have witnessed, still they think of us as possessions. Chen felt the temperature in the chamber rising as the dragon's fury built. The containment systems, already damaged from his earlier awakening, began failing entirely. Warning lights bathed everything in red emergency lighting. Valtharion, don't let anger cloud your judgment, she cautioned. This is exactly what the hardliners want, an excuse to paint dragons as mindless destroyers. But across the system, other dragons were less restrained. A massive black dragon named Necrotharion, freed from a mining station near the system's edge, was already moving toward the disabled Zephyrian ships. His scales absorbed light like a living void, and cosmic fire leaked from between them like cracks in reality itself. 1,500 years they stole my fire to power their war machines. Necrotharion's voice thundered across all communication channels. 1,500 years I dreamed of this moment. No more words. No more mercy. Admiral Rodriguez's voice cut through the growing chaos with military authority. All dragons, maintain position. Do not engage unless fired upon. We're trying to preserve the peace here. Peace. Thymatharion's golden radiance pulsed with bitter humor. They speak of destroying us while their empire rests on our stolen lives. What peace can exist with slavers? Commander Zeltar watched the readings on his instruments as power levels throughout the system climbed toward dangerous parameters. The freed dragons were no longer restraining their cosmic abilities, and the resulting energy buildup was affecting everything from ship navigation to the asteroid's structural integrity. Captain Chen, he said urgently, you need to understand what you've started. If the dragons go to war, it won't just destroy our fleet. The energy cascade will tear apart everything in the system. Chen was already working at the communication console, trying to establish contact with both fleets simultaneously. Admiral Rodriguez, we need to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the combat zone. The dragon's emotional state is affecting local spacetime. Copy that. All civilian vessels begin immediate evacuation procedures. But Admiral Kethvar was beyond reason. The sight of his mighty fleet rendered helpless by creatures his people had enslaved for centuries had pushed him past the breaking point of imperial pride. Emergency broadcast to high command, he transmitted on secure channels. Request immediate deployment of the Void Kraken. Authorization, Kethvar Omega 77. The word sent a chill through every Zephyrian on the frequency. The Void Kraken was the Empire's most closely guarded secret, a weapon built from the corpse of a dead dragon, powered by the enslaved essence of three others. It was genocide made manifest, a tool designed not just to kill dragons, but to prevent them from ever returning to the cosmic cycle. Valtharian's roar of anguish shook the asteroid to its core as he detected the quantum signature of his fallen kindred approaching through hyperspace. They bring the death song. They have bound Zultharan's corpse to their will. What's a death song? Chen demanded, but she could already see the answer in the dragon's cosmic eyes. Pain and fury beyond mortal comprehension. The ultimate blasphemy, Valtharian replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. When a dragon dies, their essence should return to the cosmic fire. But the Empire learned to trap that essence, to bind it to mechanical systems. They turned our dead into weapons against the living. The readings on every sensor in the system spiked as a massive vessel tore through hyperspace directly toward the battle zone. The Void Kraken was a ship built around the skeleton of an ancient dragon, its bones replaced with quantum conduits and its heart replaced with a reactor powered by enslaved dragon souls. All human vessels. Immediate withdrawal, Admiral Rodriguez ordered. We are not equipped to engage that class of weapon. But the freed dragons had no intention of retreating. As one, they began moving toward the incoming abomination, cosmic fire building around them like a stellar storm. No, Thymatharian declared. We will not run from our own dead. We will free Zultharan's spirit and send him home to the stars. Chen could feel the decision crystallizing in Valtharian's mind, even before he moved. The ancient dragon was going to break through the asteroid's hull and join the battle, regardless of the consequences to the facility or the thousands of workers still aboard. Wait, she called out, but Valtharian was already spreading his wings, power building around him like a miniature supernova. I have waited 15 centuries, daughter of my people. I will wait no longer. The dragon burst through the chamber's walls and the asteroid's hull in an explosion of cosmic fire that lit up the system like a newborn star. Behind him, the mining facility began breaking apart as its structural integrity failed. But emergency force fields activated to protect the fleeing. Workers. Commander Zeltar found himself alone in the collapsing chamber with a human who should have been terrified but instead stood watching the destruction with grim satisfaction. You planned this, he realized. All of it. The liberation, the conflict, even the Void Kraken's arrival. Chen turned to him with eyes that held depths of knowledge accumulated over centuries of preparing for this moment. Commander, humanity has spent 300 years studying every aspect of the Empire's dragon hunting capabilities. We knew about the Void Kraken. We've been waiting for them to deploy it. Why? Because, Chen said as explosions echoed through the dying facility. Some weapons are too terrible to exist. Today we end the Empire's ability to commit genocide. Today we free the dead as well as the living. Through the breached hull, they could see Valtharian joining his 23 kindred in space, cosmic fire building between them as they prepared to face the ultimate horror of their species' enslavement. The final battle for draconic freedom was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Void. Kraken emerged from hyperspace like a wound in reality itself. Its hull was the fossilized skeleton of Zultharan the Eternal, once the greatest of the cosmic guardians, now twisted into an instrument of extinction. Quantum conduits ran through his ancient bones, pulsing with the enslaved essence of three dragons whose screams echoed across dimensions that mortals couldn't perceive. 24 free dragons faced the abomination that had once been their greatest champion. Valtharian flew at the formation's heart, cosmic fire streaming from his scales as 15 centuries of rage and sorrow found focus. Behind them, the human liberation fleet maintained position, their weapons useless against such a foe. Zultharan, Thymatharian's voice carried across the void, heavy with mourning. Brother, what have they done to you? The Void Kraken's response was not words but a howl of tormented souls, a sound that made space itself recoil. The weapon systems, built into the dead dragon's body, began charging, drawing power from the three enslaved spirits that served as its core. Admiral Kethavar's voice crackled across all frequencies, mad with desperation. Behold the price of rebellion. Your greatest champion serves the Empire now. Surrender, or watch him destroy you all. But instead of fear, the living dragons showed something the Admiral couldn't comprehend. Pity. He cannot hear you through the pain they have inflicted upon him, Valtharian said softly. But we can reach him. We remember the songs from before the Empire, before the chains. The 24 dragons began to sing. It wasn't music as biological. Entities understood it, but harmonies of cosmic force that resonated through the fundamental frequencies of reality itself. Each voice added another layer to the song, weaving together stories of freedom, of flying between the stars when the galaxy was young, of the joy that came from willing service to protect the innocent. The Void Kraken's advance faltered as the song reached Zul'Tharen's tortured consciousness. For the first time in 1,000 years, something other than pain touched the enslaved spirit's awareness. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kethvar watched his ultimate weapon begin to malfunction. What are they doing? Fire, destroy them. Before, his words were cut off as every system on the ship began resonating in harmony with the dragon's song. The quantum conduits that had been built from salvaged dragon technology were responding to frequencies they had been programmed to recognize as fundamental commands. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with growing panic, "the weapon is not responding to our control signals. The targeting systems are. They're singing." Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, ships began experiencing similar malfunctions. Every piece of technology derived from dragon research, which was virtually everything in their civilization, started responding to the cosmic song rather than their programmed instructions. The three enslaved spirits powering the Void Kraken began to remember who they had been: Soltharian the Bright, Lunara the Swift, and Mortis the Deep, guardians all, taken in the early days of the Empire's expansion and bound to eternal servitude. Brothers, sisters. Their voices joined the growing chorus, no longer screams of agony but calls of recognition. We remember the light. The quantum bindings that held them began to crack under the pressure of their awakening consciousness. The Void Kraken shuddered as its primary power source started to refuse their enslavement. Chen and Commander Zeltar, now aboard an emergency shuttle fleeing the collapsing asteroid, watched through the viewport as something unprecedented occurred in the void. The dead dragon's skeleton began to glow with inner light as the enslaved spirits fought to break free. "It's working," Chen whispered. "The song is reaching them." "What song?" Zeltar demanded. "What are they singing?" "The Song of Willing Fire," Chen replied, her eyes never leaving the cosmic display. "It was the first lesson Seraphina taught us. Dragons don't just burn with cosmic energy. They choose to burn. Every flame, every bit of power they share, comes from a conscious decision to give of themselves." The implication struck the Zephyrian commander like a physical blow. "You mean, all this time we could have simply asked?" "Not asked," Chen corrected gently. "Invited. Dragons don't serve. They partner. They don't submit. They choose to share their gifts with those they deem worthy." The Void Kraken's death ray began charging, but instead of targeting the free dragons, it turned toward Admiral Kethvar's flagship. Zul'Tharen's consciousness was fighting for control of his own corpse, and his first desire was to end the ones who had violated his eternal rest. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kethvar screamed, but his fleet was already powerless, their dragon-derived technology responding to the cosmic song rather than imperial commands. The death ray fired, but Thymotharian intercepted it, his golden form absorbing the blast that had been meant to destroy fleets. The energy dispersed harmlessly through his cosmic fire, proving that weapons built from stolen dragon power could never truly harm willing dragons. "Enough." Phaeltharian's voice carried the authority of eons. "Zul'Tharan, old friend, it is time to rest. Your guard is ended." The dead dragon's response came as a sigh that seemed to echo from the heart of the galaxy itself. The quantum bindings, holding his three companions, finally shattered, and three brilliant lights erupted from the Void Kraken's core as the enslaved spirits broke free. Soltharian, Lunara, and Mortis appeared in their true forms for the first time in a millennium, their scales blazing with the joy of liberation. Behind them, the Void Kraken's skeleton began to dissolve as Zul'Tharen's spirit finally found peace. "Thank you," his fading voice carried across the system. "Thank you for remembering the old songs." The massive weapon that had been the Empire's ultimate tool of genocide crumbled into cosmic dust, leaving only the echo of ancient laughter in the void. Admiral Rodriguez's voice cut through the stunned silence. All Zephyrian vessels, your primary weapon is destroyed, your fleet is disabled, and your technology is no longer under your control. I ask again, will you negotiate for the peaceful liberation of all enslaved dragons? Admiral Kethavar's reply came through gritted mandibles, the sound of imperial pride finally breaking. What? What are your terms? Chen smiled as she watched dragons old and new dancing together in the starlight, their cosmic fire painting the void in colors that had no names. After 1,500 years of slavery, the Guardians were finally coming home. Our terms are simple, she said over the open channel. Freedom for all dragons, transition assistance for your civilization, and a galaxy where no being is ever again considered property. The age of empires built on slavery was ending, and the age of partnership was about to begin.